Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad.
Somehow, someway, we cannot seem to finish with the Halloween series. We're talking Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie today. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man with his mask flaking off, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
When I want your opinion, I'll beat it out of you.
He really goes for unlikable in this movie.
Yeah. And I'd say even the abusive, misogynist dialogue in this movie is better than in the last movie. If it was the Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007, it would be fuck you. When I want your fucking opinion, I'll fuck you in the ass or something like that. Well, I think I said previously when we did Halloween 2007 that there is a quote from Rob Zombie where he essentially gives up on the Loomis, making the Loomis character anything close to the original.
He was afraid to do that, right?
Well, he just said, "Oh, fuck it, I'll make him Dr. Phil."
Yeah.
So, and that's that's one of the
It's quite an indictment of Dr. Phil.
I don't know. I think it's pretty consistent with the man. From what I know about him, and how he made his name. But regardless, it's another one of those distinct yet wrong choices that Rob Zombie's making. Because you can kind of follow that choice through to the end of the movie and go, yeah, he's acting like Dr. Phil would act. But you're also going, it's entirely the wrong thing to do with that character.
Sure.
Especially given that you brought him back from the dead just for this.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In fact, he brought everybody back from the dead.
But particularly Loomis. I think when you see kind of Loomis resurrected, you're like, oh, that's the strongest argument that Rob Zombie didn't want a sequel.
I would say the strongest evidence that he didn't want a sequel was having his main girl shoot Michael in the head at point blank range.
Well, we know from Halloween that doesn't always take.
Fine.
But Loomis said, well, no, actually, Loomis can come back from pretty much anything as well.
But that's interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, there isn't that Michael mystique.
Nope.
In these movies, in either of those movies, really. He's just a big giant oaf of a serial killer. There's not a lot of shooting him, getting down, and getting back up.
Well, the first sign of that is when he escapes entirely by accident.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no sneaky Michael Myers.
No, yeah, exactly. He doesn't do anything.
How he gets out of that meat wagon, that these two guys just fuck up by themselves, and he ends up, he ends up escaped rather than escaping.
If they weren't talking about fucking a dead corpse, they might be alive.
But as well,
I guess
it's also,
dead and
again,
corpse is kind of redundant, isn't it? I could just choose one or the other.
I don't know. For some reason, in the context of a Rob Zombie movie, that is an important distinction. A dead corpse. But I also think you talk about diluting the Michael mystique. I think also diluting the distinctiveness of Michael because this iteration of Michael in this film, I think, plays more like a Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly a kind of Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason, the wilderness horror version, the pillowcase on the head.
Yeah, right.
Version.
Yeah, for the first time ever, there's a director that's going to choose to just show us his face.
And hear him speak.
And hear him speak.
And hear him growl as well.
Yes.
But that's the interesting thing, because we've already heard him speak. Is it jumping the shark?
Right.
Or is it just kind of, tiptoeing over the shark that you've already jumped on?
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking Halloween 2. Like all of our single sequels, it's a 2009 film directed by Rob Zombie. I mean, whatever. Rob Zombie. He did the other Halloween, House of a Thousand Corpses. Recently, he did The Munsters. Whatever.
And he's really ramping up to that towards the end of this movie.
Yeah, you think?
He's essentially pitching his version of The Munsters with that ghost family.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I think it was...
I think it was Twin Peaks, but it comes off like
that's the
a bad
thing.
version
It
of The
does,
Munsters.
like, this movie does feel like it's got a Twin Peaks complex, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
But to,
100%.
But to me, it's it's so funny because I literally just the other night I watched Eraserhead, and then I had to watch this.
I can't believe that you're suffering from COVID and you decide to sit down and watch, of all films, Eraserhead.
I know.
A movie that can only make you feel worse.
I know.
About your own body. At a time when you need to feel good about your own body.
It can't possibly.
You want to see a tiny little kind of, an underdeveloped baby being
Spermazoa
dissected
almost. Yeah.
with its innards spraying out like silly string.
Yeah. But it.
Oh, well, good for you.
But more than
You're a better man
anything,
than
it
I.
made me realize maybe who Rob Zombie thinks he is, and of course
Yep.
who he is not.
Absolutely, he's going for Lynch, but he's not getting to the Lynch level of surrealism.
No, yeah.
He wants to be
Because
a
it's all
cinematic. He
feels
thinks of himself
surface,
as
right?
a cinematic surrealist,
Yeah.
like Lynch, but he doesn't.
But you know what the problem is?
It's all surface level.
Yeah, it's all surface level, and really, I think it was just a way to keep his nepotism going and keep his wife in his movie.
It's pretty much my first note, working overtime to get his wife back in the film.
Yeah.
But anyway, give us some stats before we get there.
Yeah. Well, this movie, despite both of us saying it's better than the first movie, this movie goes down by, I think, 3 or 4% to 25% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Budget of $15 million, an opening weekend of $16.3 million. In the USA, $33.3 million, and in the world, $39.4 million. Can I skip to the end for a second?
Of the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of this movie, credits roll, and the Halloween theme starts, and it's only
Yes.
then that I think to myself, oh, this was supposed to be a Halloween movie.
Yeah. That music needs to be there for that exact reminder.
Yeah. Because
Otherwise,
it feels
you would have
so
forgotten.
far removed from a Halloween movie. Because I don't remember hearing that music until the final credits.
If it is, it's once or twice max.
Yeah.
I think there's an.
But, like,
I seem
low.
to remember.
Low
And not like maybe like orchestral or
Yeah.
acoustic, but not.
it's
not
not
the
bringing Michael out
John
on
Carpenter
the gurney in Halloween
turn a
4.
synthesizer. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Carpenter puts on the synthesizer, goes off, gets a sandwich. Halloween theme. Which is, what we all want and love.
Yeah.
Well, but this is... I totally agree with you. It's so far removed from what we know to be Halloween, and yet at the same time, we can't transcend the template of Halloween 2. And this is not just Rob Zombie's problem. It's also David Gordon Green's problem
Yeah.
with both Halloween and Halloween Kills. Keep going back to that hospital.
Do you give him any credit
go-
for
Doing that faster, yeah, I like that narrative choice here. I think they get to the meat of the hospital stuff quicker and get out of the hospital faster than Halloween, the original Halloween.
So
2
I
does.
agree with all of that, but I also kind of take umbrage that you have this long, extended 20-25 minute sequence that turns out to be a dream.
Is it all a dream?
Yeah.
Is that canon? I thought that was unresolved, and that some of it could be a dream and some of it's. If it really is a dream, then I gotta say, That's my mistake.
Well,
For not knowing that, and it will automatically go to the bottom of the list. Congratulations, Pink Panther 2.
Yeah, so that's
You've avoided
that's the
that
thing I was going to
ignominy.
say, is that there's a lot of
Okay.
shit at the beginning of this movie that shows me what a bad filmmaker he is, and that's one of them. Like, I would say that the stuff at the house and with the ambulance guys happened,
Okay.
but the movie would be telling me that that has to be part of her dream as well, right?
Well, I thought it was ambiguous as to what she imagined, what part of this front half hour she imagined and what really happened, and that it's never resolved. I'm not saying that's good, but that to me is a better alternative than it's all a dream.
I think it's all a dream. Well, I think everything in the
well.
hospital is a dream. But here's my other
I
weak
don't want to
filmmaker
consider
point.
that possibility
Here's my
because
other
that's pretty much my only positive for this movie is they get to the meat of the hospital quicker and they get out of there quicker than the original Halloween 2. That's really the only thing I can say in defense of this movie.
Yeah, but for me,
But if it's all a dream, then that's pointless.
right, that's what I mean. I think it is all a dream, and it's 25 minutes of a dream. And so to me, it's this indulgent fuck you to Halloween 2 and the audience, but still saying, like, if you want to start your movie a year later, just fucking start your movie a year later.
Except I like that split time frame. I think that's what the original Halloween 2 should have done, is wrapped up the events of the original Halloween in the same night, and then the second half should have been about a year later or sometime later. So I'm not saying Rob Zombie does anything with that that's productive, but that's the best solution to having a follow-up to Halloween, I think, is to kind of split it in two, so that it's kind of Halloween 2. It's like all of Halloween 2 condensed into the first half, and then the beginning of Halloween 4 for the second half. Like that's
But
kind
then
of
you
the
have
perfect
two front
move,
halves of
perfect
a movie.
Halloween 2. It's like when you get it's like, you know, when you get a loaf of bread
Yes.
and you don't want to eat the end piece
Yeah,
that
right.
doesn't have two sides, so you end up with two end pieces.
It just keeps going all the way down.
Yeah, and you end up with two end pieces. It's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, but there's a potential for the way that this movie is structured to really work, and yet this movie doesn't capitalize on it. And then, of course, Halloween Kills definitely doesn't capitalize on it, because it's if anything, even longer and protracted in its hospitalness than Halloween 2.
Yeah, you might leave the hospital, but your main character does not.
Right.
Unwise.
Very unwise, yes.
But here's my other point. They do go to the house. They're snapping photos. One of the first things you see is them photographing Michael Myers. Right?
Right.
So you're telling us Michael Myers. The next thing we see is them loading a body into the ambulance. I assume that's Michael Myers. Then we go back to 6 guys picking up Michael Myers.
Oh, okay.
And they're now putting a second, so I was like, who
Yeah.
was in that first fucking bag? Oh, maybe it's Annie. Nope, turns out Annie's alive. So there's all kinds of bad filmmaking going on in the front half of this series. Like, he doesn't literally know what to show the audience.
Absolutely.
That's frustrating.
But I don't want to skip over the actual opening of this movie.
Lionsgate?
Well, we can maybe skip past that.
Okay, thank you.
We can
Oh,
skip
you're
past
right.
Lionsgate.
The white,
So
the quote. Fuck.
the quote,
Yeah.
yeah. So the movie begins with the quote, and something leaves me unconvinced at the veracity of this quote. Maybe it's because the last film began with a quote that was said by a fictional character.
I literally thought that there was going to be a Loomis thing that came out at the bottom of this quote.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
But again, like, it's a bad version of a good idea, which is Rob Zombie. That is pretty much his entire repertoire.
That's his thing.
Because Werner Herzog does this in his documentaries as well. He makes up quotes and then puts them at the beginning of his movies, which I think is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
If you ever, I watched his masterclass, and he says, "So you will probably see that this quote is not real. I have not. It comes. I completely create. I wanted to begin with a quote, so this was the quote that we began with, but it doesn't come from anywhere. I made it up."
Did you listen to him on Conan's show?
No, I a little bit of that, but I'd heard a lot of what he said before. Yeah,
it's this magical moment where he says, "This television show is who's the Honey Boo Boo."
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's
he's talking
most
about
of
how much
TLC's
he loves that
output.
show, yeah.
Much of TLC's output is like kind of Werner Herzog on a budget,
Oh.
you know?
So funny.
90 Day Fiancé is, I can imagine Werner Herzog making a documentary feature like that. But yeah, that when he does it, it's genius, and you don't mind that you've been tricked.
Yeah.
When Rob Zombie does it, it's just like he's not putting the work in.
Well, it's the same for the Coens, right? Like everything you're about to see is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, except it's not.
Except it's not, and that is to reframe how you think about the movie, so it does something interesting. This does nothing.
I love the story
Because-
of somebody saying, so maybe it was one of the actors on Fargo that said, "So tell me more about the story. Like, what happened in the real story?" And Joel and Ethan Coen were like, "Oh, it's not true." And he's like, "Well, you can't say that it was true if it wasn't." And he goes, "Why not?"
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I guess the larger point is not that. I suspect it's not that the opening quote describing what the white horse means is probably bullshit. Like, it even doesn't. I bet if you go online and search white horse, you'll get none of what is in that quote. But even taking that aside, why is there a white horse in this movie? That is never discussed or resolved.
No, I mean, it just has to do with the innocence lost. I think he himself said it could have been anything. It could have been a fire truck.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's getting worse for you.
Then it shouldn't be a white horse.
Yeah, right.
Because he's coming out of the gate saying the white horse is has a very specific mythology around it. And then apparently he did this interview where he said it's a MacGuffin.
Oh my God. So, but my bigger problem is, like you said, it's never discussed, within the scope of the movie. And so you're not going to clue the audience in that way. So we don't even need this title card because we're going to get all the information we need visually anyway. So,
and it hurts the kind of abstractness of it.
Yeah, right.
To try and pin down
exactly.
What the subtext of it is
Yes.
before you've seen it in the film. It's a pre-footnote.
And to me, that's the mark of like somebody that doesn't know what he's doing because he doesn't feel comfortable with what he's doing. Because he felt like he had to explain it to the audience before the whole thing fucking started.
He's too comfortable. He's too comfortable.
Yeah, way too fucking comfortable.
Yeah, and he wants to get Sherry back in the film, even though her character died in the story. So we've got to recast Baby Michael and flashback to the start of the first movie. Which, I mean, obviously it complicates things in a production sense because you've got to recast because you can't have the same actor.
Why not? I mean, yeah, he's a couple years older, but
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's true as well.
come on. Was there that much of a difference?
But the bigger part is that this going back to this stage of Michael, it reconfuses everything, because this is the stage that if anything, you want to pretend that this didn't happen.
Right,
in the
yeah,
first film. There
totally.
was this briefly innocent stage between him killing lots of people and killing lots of people, where he was sane and speaking and like a normal kid.
Yeah.
Which we've never, like when we talked about Halloween on the Patreon, which you'll have to pay for, but just to give you a kind of preview of what that would be like. We talked about how this is the part of the story you can't rationalize.
Yeah.
Right? It's like how he went from killer to normal kid back to killer.
Well, and also, why would you?
So we're
That's
going
what
back to the source of what doesn't make sense about any of this.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing we see. And then we rejoin Laurie, and we have the bad filmmaking that you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, again, we're remaking Halloween, the original Halloween 2, because we're picking up in real time, which again is a choice that.
But I'll also say
the reboots don't want to get away from.
In that Sherry Moon zombie scene, she ends up talking about what we just read anyway. Like, it's like 45 seconds later. Like,
yeah.
So, yeah, anyway.
One or the other, Rob. One or the other.
Yeah.
And this is where I think, like, the opening... This film has both this flashback and then this opening scene. The film has more of a look to it than the original Halloween. Like, it's got a monochrome quality to it.
It's got
this wet color effect that he
Yeah.
likes, which is distinctive. Again, wrong, but distinctive.
Yeah. But it's more monochrome, and I do think it looks better. But to your point, I think that you were saying in the last movie, these movies are telling us that we're in present day, but they look like movies from the 70s.
Well, this is, again, like, the movie cannot contain its own historical contradictions, and it just this is an aspect of the film that just gets worse and worse, because you can almost play it off in Halloween, but this movie wants to kind of move forward in time, whilst at the same time keeping a sense of timelessness, but then they keep leaning into really specific aspects of certain historical periods.
Yeah.
Like the health craze of the 2000s, the whole idea of having whole grain pizza, whole grain crust pizza. It's like, well, that's a 2000s thing. That's like a contemporary thing that you're putting in there. But we're still watching black and white television. Like,
right.
Somewhere in this world, the what do they call what's the name of the band? The Moody Blues are doing a performance for Ready Steady Go.
I got that one.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like you can't, like, it's not, when you do timelessness, there has to be, it's about kind of, everything has to be
on one level.
Abstract.
It all has to be, there has to be a cohesion.
You can't just time travel back and forth between the two. And the problem comes out, I think it's even stronger in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he wants to have so many specific pulls from specific moments in time.
Mm-hmm. Why do we have this scene with Brackett finding Laurie in the road and talking to her just to jump to the hospital? Like,
she looks cool.
She's catatonic, and then she's screaming like a madman.
Because she looks like a zombie, and this film's directed by Rob Zombie, so he knows people will think zombie, and then think, oh, Rob Zombie, he's cool. He's the director.
Oh, I'm dumb. I should have got that.
No, you're not dumb. You're too clever. Other Halloween sequels work around depictions of Laurie getting surgery. Not Rob Zombie. No, he's going to go into every single excision in extreme close-up.
Yeah, that's my note.
I mean,
the amount of porn hospital
this guy
lore.
is so off the mark.
Yeah.
He's so off the mark in everything he tries to do.
Mm-hmm. We're in agreement. I do not like it. It's why it's at the bottom of my list.
Yeah. We get a mini Deadwood reunion here with Callie Dayton.
We really do, yeah.
And it just reminds me, there's so many great actors wasted in these couplets.
Yeah.
Couplet of films. pretty much like half the cast of Deadwood and God knows how many others.
I mean, coming up, I wrote, nobody, even by 2009, knew what to do with Octavia Spencer. That really pissed me off.
I mean, I feel so sorry for her because people just keep casting her as nurses in films, and it's like it gets to the point where she should just be in a hospital set and movies should come to her.
Right.
Logistically, that would make more sense than what we've been doing, where she has to go through the rigmarole of putting on the nurse's outfit, going to wherever they're filming. Yeah, it's and we've already covered that. You know, one of Rob Zombie's things is that he has to find characters to latch lascivious behavior onto.
Yeah.
And in this scene, it's the two meat wagon guys.
Richard Brake is back in our life.
Yeah, and and then there's like a barrage of obscenity.
Yeah.
The guy just keeps saying "fuck."
And
that's the same as in the original. It's like an orgasm of obscenities that Rob Zombie likes to have in his movies.
But what is the choice that Zombie's making in this moment? Because he keeps hyper focusing in extreme close-up on Richard Brake's mouth as he's talking about fucking a corpse. By the way, it sounds like they're talking about fucking the sheriff's daughter, which is why I thought she was in the meat wagon. I had seen this movie, but forgot that she didn't die in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured that was her body they were talking about fucking. So none of this, by the way, makes sense, because, by the way, she's not dead.
But there is a version of the original movie where she does die, and I presume that some of these scenes are still riffing off that.
Wait, what?
Or maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, she's alive in this movie, so he
She
made
certainly
that
is.
choice.
But if this is all a dream, then none of this matters anyway.
Oh.
Is this a dream yet? In your reading of the movie?
I don't think we're to the dream yet.
Okay.
I think once we get to the hospital, we're firmly in dream world.
There's a nod to Halloween Resurrection here with the beheading of the coroner.
There is Halloween Resurrection, and there is so much Halloween 5 in this movie.
Well, these two goofy meat wagon guys
are part of that,
kind
yes.
Yeah, the clown car cop.
But at any rate, they run into a cow, and apparently it was the strongest cow in the history of the world, because
it's a shame its life had to end that way.
Yeah.
The Guinness Book of Records people were just getting there.
You know, poor Dayton Callie, boy, did his face
Dayton Callie, not Callie Dayton. Sorry.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I lifetimed his name.
All right.
Callie Dayton sounds like an actor from a Lifetime movie.
Boy, that steering wheel just fucked up his face.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just sort of more gore porn.
Yeah.
What year is Hostel?
It's about this time.
Is that this time?
I'm gonna say 2008.
So maybe that's an influence then.
There were two of them as well.
Yeah.
Or two cinematic. And they've got a few video sequels. Yeah, no, completely. And he wants to be Eli Roth. He wants to be Tarantino, and he has about a tenth of the talent of either of them combined.
Mm-hmm. 2005, 2007, and 2011.
Holy shit! Okay,
1,
that's
2, and
earlier
3.
than I thought.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that means that Zombie's coming late to the party.
Well, it's the fashionable thing to do.
I guess. Yeah.
He thinks. And this is where the white horse shit begins.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay, so ethereal fantasy is now part of this film for some reason.
For some reason. And the funny part is, we already said it, but it's all surface. At this point, aren't we just seeing Sheri Moon Zombie? At some point, he's going to see himself with her at all times.
Right, yeah.
But I think in this moment, it's just her, right?
Yeah, it's just her.
Yeah.
Maybe even just the horse. Does he see her, or is she with the horse?
She's
Is
with
she
the horse.
riding the horse?
Yeah, she's
Okay,
with the
she's
horse.
Someone has to be with the dream horse.
It's
at
at
all
quite
times.
it's at quite a distance.
No, it's a dream horse. It can go wherever the fuck it wants.
Yeah.
You gotta have a handler on set.
You know, if you're gonna do this shit, at least have it made by TriStar.
Yeah,
You know?
the horse just kind of like he sees it in the distance, and it just hear.
Well, he's gonna cut off Brake's head. Then he does see the horse, and he walks away.
Next we see Laurie staggering around the hospital, like limping Jamie Lee, but far worse.
Yeah.
She's dragging an IV around on
Yeah,
wheels,
right,
so
exactly.
Again, they've doubled down on the thing that didn't
It
work
didn't
about
work.
Halloween 2. They've added equipment to it.
And Annie, as it turns out, not dead. And then we get Octavia.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, one of my because
Also, Caroline. Also, there's a horror cameo in here. Caroline Williams,
yeah,
who is who from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yeah.
So it's a horror sequel cameo specifically.
I thought it was very funny. So I have the whatchamacallit, closed caption on.
More fool you.
Okay. And Octavia Spencer walks out of the room because, you know, I mean, at least in Halloween 2 of 1980, 81?
Yeah, 81, I think.
81. There's a reason, like, the power's gone out, like they're low staffed, that kind of thing. They kind of talk about that. In this movie, there's none of that. She's just wandering around the halls, like you said, with her equipment, rolling down the fucking halls, looking for pain meds. And out comes Octavia Spencer, and she's like, "Oh, nurse!" And she turns around, and her face is slit. And Michael walks out, and he's going to start really going to town on Octavia Spencer. But my closed captions, as she starts getting stabbed, said, "Octavia sobs. Octavia cries."
Wait a minute. Why are the closed captioners calling her by her real name?
I don't know.
Rob Zombie's like, you're just going to be called Octavia because I can't remember another name.
Did you notice, by the way, because there's a couple of moments in that stabbing scene, which is gratuitous and, you know, way over the top, and this is where he's starting his grunting. But there's a couple of moments of close-up on Octavia Spencer's face
Yeah.
where I'm like, God bless her. She is fucking putting in work that nobody should be asked to put in, covered in blood, lying on a floor for, I'm sure, hours.
It's like nurse part bingo. She's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so I now have 15 nurse bit parts under my belt. Can you give me a leading role in something? And that's how The Help happened.
Maybe.
Yeah, I guess the one thing they do in the way of explaining how he got in is the storm.
Yeah. There's only one thing I really liked in all of this, because I read about it on the IMDb notes. There's so right after this, Laurie is kind of doing the 81 Halloween thing of like running through the hospital and trying to get away, and finds kind of a backdoor alley. And then, I mean, he seems to be right on her heels, and then she like, she walks like 100 yards to a fence, can't get over the fence, goes to a door, and meanwhile he's no longer within walking space of her, and she gets into that little security hut. Then Michael walks out because he can't see her get into the hut. But there's a moment where it's raining, and they do this fairly close-up shot of Michael's face with the mask on, and I noticed the rain is horizontal, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think maybe that was real rain. And then I read it was real rain, like they really had a problem with weather during the shoot. They just,
So once again, the aspect of the movie I'm giving Rob Zombie credit for happened completely by accident.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I tell you, this is not accidental. Good bit of casting. Richard Reel as Buddy.
As Buddy, yeah. He's
great in this scene.
Very, yeah.
I like that I like when I first saw him, I was like, "Oh, this guy's gonna be a piece of shit."
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the fact that he wasn't really,
But
the
because
fact
it's
that
a
he's
Rob
trying to
Zombie
help-
film, you expect him to be a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that, you know, that instead of going with he's a piece of shit and he's going to leave her to the mercy of Michael, is that he's trying to help her, but he's just bungling the job a bit.
Yeah.
Leads to some kind of quite effective comedy horror, which is not something you expect in a Rob Zombie movie, but I think it's more Richard Reel kind of, again, like playing another security guard.
Yeah, right.
You know, another security guard. Again, they should just bring the movie to him. But then, you know, we get more house smashing. And, you know, if you're watching these movies in continuity, this is the second time in less than 30 minutes we've had a sustained house smashing set piece.
Yeah. In addition,
so it's getting a bit
this is the moment
wary now.
I would have woken up before this in a nightmare, in a real nightmare. You know?
Oh, well, I think all of us would have tapped out of this nightmare much earlier.
Yeah.
Not because we're scared, because we're bored.
You said this is the part you like.
I know. Yeah, both things can be true.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so
Well,
it was all a dream.
Yeah.
A long extended
Well, I
dream.
don't think that's established.
Well, I agree with you, but only because he's a bad filmmaker.
I
I
wrote
think
at
that's
this
his
point,
intent, though.
I wrote at this point, are we supposed to write off the hospital as a nightmare or just where we left the action? And I don't know if that's ever resolved. Like, something happened in between that would contradict the last thing we saw happen.
Yeah, but there's no reference to it. There's no reference to him.
There's no reference to it being a nightmare as well.
Her waking up screaming. That's a reference to a nightmare.
And don't forget the standard scream. But anyway, okay. Well, okay. I think it's unresolved, but
you can be wrong.
I don't put it past Rob Zombie to have done a 25-minute dream sequence.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I mean, even
sir.
The Sopranos didn't pull that off. Remember the test dream?
Yeah.
That was a shaky episode.
All right. Why don't we take a break?
Yeah. And then we'll go into present day ?
Maybe.
Present day, but of when?
1978, maybe?
1970-90.
All right.
Planet. I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. You're most likely listening to music that this movie did not earn.
This movie pirated that music, even
Yeah.
though it was allowed to use it. It still pirated it.
That was my overall thought when that music started. I was like, but this movie doesn't deserve that music.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like giving it the John Carpenter seal of approval, which I don't know. Did this movie get? Probably not.
I know that I can answer that question. I'm pretty sure that this is the movie I read Zombie offered Carpenter a cameo, and he said, no, thank you.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Was it a sort of? Was that a sort of cameo? Come direct my movie cameo, or what was it?
Yeah. To end that dream sequence, I wrote down jerky camera movement and surprise, it's a dream.
Well, it's a year later, and Laurie.
We're talking to Margot Kidder.
Yeah, Laurie is morphed into a woman who has the exact same tastes as Rob Zombie.
Yes,
in
right.
both music and fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So she found that new way of life fast.
You know what's funny is I read this thing about what Zombie wanted to do with Laurie and have her with all kinds of psychological problems, drug problems, alcohol problems, just a complete mess of a person. And then somebody said, no, you can't do that. And he's like, all right, well, we'll reel it back and she'll be like way more in control of her life. And I thought, this is the more in control of her life version of the story you wanted to tell? That's insane.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because this is because of Jamie Lee Curtis leaving the franchise. This is the part we never saw in the original continuity, right? Is that like what happened to Laurie a year later? We eventually saw it in H2O.
But that's well more than a year, you know?
Yeah, no, but we never learned what that she learned. You never learned when she learned she was Michael's sister. We never saw that moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, we only get kind of exposition from in Halloween 4 about what, you know, happened to her life after Halloween 2. So I like the idea of, again, I think horror sequels with, you know, the final girl, what happens to the final girl as the basis of your sequel is generally a good idea. And this, you know, the consequences of her being, of what happened to her. But again, the thing that they did differently in the original movie was to have her be orphaned. So now they have to deal with the fallout from that, basically.
Yeah, right.
Which is not something that was in the original formula. So she now has to live with the Brackets.
The Brackets, yeah.
And Rob Zombie sure loves his dysfunctional family breakfast scenes. Whew. Boy, this is the third one in 2 films.
Yeah.
People cooking eggs and being
we haven't even gotten to the pizza yet, so there's a dinner too.
Well, they talk about the pizza in this scene.
They do,
because this is where they decide that they're choosing the. This is where we're let in on their pizza decision-making process. And again, like, that health craze is so much of the time that you can't help but think of it as a movie that takes place in the early 2000s.
Whole wheat.
But yeah, then we're into whole wheat crust, yeah. And egg whites as well. They're eating egg whites.
Yeah.
Which, again, another reason to join our Patreon. Mike gives you his recipe for scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
So.
You want to know how to do it right.
Yep. Don't tell him because it's behind a paywall.
Yeah.
This is like when like when you subscribe to the New York Times so you can get one recipe from their food section.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got 4 months of this shit. Yeah,
yes,
and then
for some reason you're always at your limit of the New York Times monthly articles. What's that all about? Don't I get 6 a month? What's going on?
Sorry, it doesn't include recipes. It only includes badly written editorials.
Bunch of bullshit.
Margot Kidder, as you said, when she turns up in the movie, it feels like Muppet movie level of cameos.
There is, and it's not the only one though, because pretty soon Howard Hessman is going to rear his ugly head,
that's what I mean. Like it's like Muppet. You know, it's the kind of the way that they do celebrity cameos in Muppet movies. It's like
crazy.
But unfortunately, you know, the characters aren't Muppets.
There's no Dr. Teeth making his presence known.
Howard Hessman could have easily been substituted with Dr. Teeth,
Right?
with no loss to this movie and only gain. And so this is where the kind of celebrity cameo thing just becomes full on distracting, I think.
Well, and also because, Margot Kidder, first of all, this is a therapy session that I don't know that would ever happen as this therapy session happens. Like, it felt like so surface of a therapy session.
And this clearly isn't their first visit.
Yeah, right.
When this stuff would be discussed.
Yeah, exactly.
She'd be in hypnosis by now or something.
You're a British person. Does PG tips mean something to you that it doesn't?
It certainly does. It means even more than you might think, because this is the point at which I realize that New Loomis and I drink the same brand of tea, and he takes it just how I take it.
Should it be sizzling hot?
Yep, sizzling hot and only a little milk.
All right.
That's it. That's the way to drink PG tips. It's the best name brand tea in Britain by a mile. It's lovely.
And you're a crazy doctor now?
Yeah. Well, I'm both. Yeah. I'm a doctor and I'm crazy. PG tips is also, I was also attracted to it because they used chimps to advertise it on TV.
Well, that would get my endorsement.
The commercials were always like chimps doing human manual labor, so it'd be like chimps moving a piano and stopping to have a cup of tea. And yeah,
why don't we tell them that it's all the chimps we sent to space and come back super smart?
Pretty much, but they were but those chimps were owned by the people who made the tea. Brook Bond was also like a chimp sanctuary.
Okay.
Anyway, so then go and take this tab and go and do what you want with it. We got bigger fish to fry than the origins of PG tips. But anyway, I thought that was funny that we drink the same brand of tea and we have it exactly the same way. But he's New Loomis now, not Old Loomis.
Mm-hmm.
Except that Old Loomis wasn't like Old Loomis. So
no, yeah.
There was no Old Loomis. Old Loomis is Donald Pleasance. There was nothing, and now there's
Hadn't
New
he
Loomis.
already written a book in the first movie too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. This is just where they doubled down on the potential to make him a Dr. Phil type character.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. We're already in the world of true crime literary celebrity. It's just that this film does even more with it.
Yeah.
And 1 year later, Michael is out there in the wilderness.
Just moving about.
And then, that's like several of the Halloween sequels employ this timeline and scenario, right? It's like we can't think of anything better to do with him than just stick him out in the wilderness and come back a year later.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the Halloween 5 of it all that you were talking about.
Yeah. It felt very much like that.
Voodoo resurrection in this
non-voodoo resurrection, or is it 6? Is it not till 6 when Paul Rudd kind of starts talking about
the cult
specific the specific day of it all?
Oh, the Samhain and it depends. It depends on how much you think they knew.
It's kind of like he's a clock that winds up for killing only on that day.
Yeah.
I think that's in 6. Anyway.
I think it's heavily implied in 4 and 5 as well that's the case. That's
I mean, the first time we're going to hear about Sam Hain is early, so
true. Have a whole movie about it essentially in the middle. Yeah, so Uncle meets Java Hole, Howard Hessman.
Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me that
they're in their own little pre-Hulu all-female reboot of High Fidelity.
Yeah, right. And it seems to me that this movie knew that Annie was supposed to die because Laurie has another peer group of friends
Yeah.
at the record store or wherever they are here,
Yeah.
separate, and that you actually could have had an interesting dynamic if Annie had died, of like, what's
Yeah.
Laurie's life like just living with Sheriff Brackett.
Yeah, it's trying to do too much too quickly. So we've got two
Yeah.
new female friends in addition to the survivors of the last film, which is pretty much everyone.
Yeah, right.
You're trying to push through Halloween 4 to 6 in the space of, one sequel.
And then at some point you're gonna feel like you have to give the due to the few people that did die in the last movie, because the dad of the other girl is gonna show up at a book signing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's several instances in this and the last movie where women get together and they talk about their sex parts.
Yeah, right.
And it's just this male idea of what women talk about when they're alone.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that even David Lynch has done better. Like in the scene, I don't even remember the scene in Inland Empire, which there are many of, and they don't connect together, so there's no reason why you would remember it.
Yeah.
It's just like topless women sitting around and groping themselves and saying tits and ass, and it's sort of like, even when David Lynch does it, it's pornographic, but it's self-aware. When
Yeah.
Rob Zombie does it, it doesn't have the self-aware part.
Yeah, you'd think I'd remember that from Inland Empire, but I don't remember anything from that.
I know what you're watching tonight.
Yeah.
There's a lot before you get to that, though. I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to maintain your boner with all the other scenes around that. There's some pretty damaging stuff in there, as far as I remember. There's about 8 minutes of a record scratching. I seem to remember as well.
That sounds like him.
That's not one of my favorite Lynches. But even that is leagues above this.
I wrote down that Loomis goes full rage at the press conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good times. Just so that we could dislike him even more.
Yeah, it's his sort of...
It seems that Zombie's main mission is to alienate the audience from Dr. Loomis. But I can't think of a reason
No.
why he wants to do that.
Yeah, he's...
Is it
That's
just because
it.
we were so on his side for, 6 movies? Well, 5. If you don't
Yeah,
count
and
3.
he did, and when he was played by Donald Pleasance, and in the context of those sequels, he'd do a bunch of crazy,
Yeah,
amoral shit, and we still liked him.
and we still liked him.
But here, we never get the chance to like him because, he lashes out.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly got this unprocessed survivor guilt, and all he wants to do is continue to exploit Michael
Yeah.
for his own financial gain. So again, Dr. Phil,
And not just
in a
Michael in
nutshell.
this movie. I mean, he's exploiting everyone.
Yes.
Laurie too, and especially.
Yes.
After, I believe, promising not to, right? Or at least
He
hearing
does, yeah.
about
Well,
Brackett's promise.
not to skip ahead, but this doesn't seem plausible that the secret of her sisterhood could have been kept a lid on that until now. That she would read about it in a book, but whatever.
Yeah, right.
I guess we just have to take that at face value.
Well, we've got more people from fucking Sons of Anarchy showing up.
Mm-hmm. With those hick vigilantes, they're like combining the words of Pulp Fiction and Sons of Anarchy. It's this
Yeah.
kind of post deliverance male that you get in certain movies that zombies trying to latch onto. But before that, this is where the White Horse and the mother come back, and we get more baby Michael.
Yeah.
And it's like Rob Zombie is not done with, or at least can't let go of, the film he never made.
Mm-hmm.
Which was like the whole of the beginning of
The whole of the
Halloween
beginning. He wanted
was supposed to be
Yeah.
the whole movie, and then the studio made him do the second half as a remake of Halloween.
Yeah.
I don't think he's let go of that, given the choices he makes in this movie to go back to that again
Agreed.
and again, especially when it doesn't make sense in continuity. I think
I
it's
mean,
this beating in the headlights is filmed really well. Like the cinematography is kind of come
Yeah,
on leaps and bounds.
all of that's fine. But the second
puts
he
the
shows
camera
up
down.
with that antler truck, you know what's gonna happen.
Well, it's a good kill ruined by bad aesthetics. This is where, the wobbly camera work and the needless slow motion takes over.
Mm-hmm.
But the baseline cinematography of the scene is much better
It's
than
good.
anything
Yeah.
in Halloween.
I do like I don't know about but there's that notion of the one person the woman who's saying sorry and asking
Yeah.
if he's all right and that kind of thing, and there's just no mercy for anyone,
Yeah,
you always wonder, like in a movie like this, will they be spared? And of course, it's a hard no.
Innocent blondes getting caught up in other people's abuse is basically the story of both of these films.
Yeah, right.
And this isn't just another sort of incidental example that's taking place.
But at one point, I think it's in this moment when Michael, I can't remember if it's before he kills her or after her, there's got kind of a close-up shot of him where now the hair on the mask is kind of standing up in an almost flat top sort of way, and it's becoming unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of unintentionally funny notes in this movie.
Yeah.
Like there's no way he understood what he was making was comical. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when we get to the Halloween court scene later on in the movie, I think that's the most unintentionally comic imagery in the movie.
All right. Speaking of,
Michael eats a dog,
yeah,
or he kills a dog, or does he kill a dog? Or
he kills a dog and eats the dog. Eats the
Okay.
inside of the dog.
He eats the inside of the dog, so obviously that's a callback.
But I couldn't. One, I noted that, of course, Zombie shows us him doing that, as opposed to just like Carpenter would show us characters who are looking at it. Two, I couldn't understand whether or not they were going for some sort of psychic connection, because Laurie all of a sudden throws up.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. So they're just doing full... And who's holding her hair? Daniel Harris. So
yeah, right.
Clearly, they're this is supposed to be a retread of Jamie's psychic connection in the end of 4 and the entirety of 5.
So there's another 5 connection for me. Also, before that, there's this moment when they're having the pizza dinner, and they're upset because it's not wheat crust, and she hopes no meat is leaking onto her pineapple. And there's a cross-cutting between...
Yes, I have that too. The animal slaughter.
Yeah, between the slaughter and Sheriff Brackett eating his meat, which seems indulgent.
Well,
and
it's
then
belaboring...
On top of that, there's this huge speech about who's the original Starvin' Marvin. Is it Lee Marvin? And then they go into like who Lee Marvin is because the kids don't know. All I wrote down was this is not exactly Tarantino dialogue.
Do you know what I have written down?
That's what I think they're going for.
Do you know what I had written down?
Go.
Ersatz Tarantino dialogue.
Okay.
So we're on the same page. Listen, after having done nothing interesting and compelling in the last film, I'm glad Brad Dourif got the chance to do his Lee Marvin impression. Again, like, as we were saying in the previous episode about just let Kevin Pollak do his William Shatner impression because it'll leave a less bad taste in the mouth of watching The Usual Suspects. But as to the cross-cutting, intercutting animal slaughter with pizza, I think the problem is it belabors, not that it's in the right hands, it would be a good choice, but it belabors a point for editing that can simply be made in the scene itself.
Yeah, right.
And that's why a good filmmaker would have noticed that. The potential in the scene to make the same point without having to resort to cross-cutting.
All right. Because right after all of this, it's like Laurie is now dreaming the white horse shit, right?
Yeah, this is so Sherry Moon Zombie is in vampire funeral garb. They want to do this Lynchian dreamscape thing, but it's too campy for that. They can't get away from the campiness of it. Again, it feels more like The Munsters. The Halloween court It's like I described it as like a Return to Oz themed 90s music video. Is what it feels like to me. But I feel a lot of that is unintended.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to cartoon skeletons, which I thought was maybe Rob Zombie's way of saying he knows what he does is cartoonish and childlike, but probably not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think he just likes the aesthetic of that cartoon. That a teenager in 2009 would never be watching.
Well, she's going to switch over to... She's going to switch over to the Ed Sullivan Show in a couple of minutes. So.
Yeah, so don't worry.
And watch the debut of Buddy Holly and the Crickets. And this is what... I wasn't tracking whether we were doing dates, but I noticed that they put up the date October 30th at this point, which feels very Halloween 3.
Yeah, right.
By the way, this is where we are in time. It's like, great. Tell me when it becomes relevant.
Tuesday.
By the way, Tuesday. It's like just tell us when it becomes relevant.
Yeah. Well, because at this point it feels like he's trying to do act breaks, but he's not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wondered if he thought he was.
I think, well, why would you put that in otherwise?
Yeah.
It's exactly what you say. It's like, so the director kind of coming on screen and going, by the way, Tuesday, and then leaving. Well, this would have been after that, but doesn't Tarantino do that in The Hateful Eight? Doesn't he suddenly start talking over his own movie, telling you what's happened in between scenes? Seem to remember he did that in The Hateful Eight.
I don't like that.
Well, this didn't work out.
Huh.
And Loomis is getting worse and worse. We see him flirting with the anchor woman.
Yeah.
So basically, it's interesting because it feels like Rob Zombie just can't be bothered to do a redemption arc for Loomis. Because everything is set in place for him to redeem himself, and they go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
They just have him. Basically, he could have he redeemed himself at the end of the first movie, but they brought him back to life and make him more of a jerk than he was then.
Right, he was a bigger asshole.
Yeah,
he learned no lessons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's out of laziness rather than intention.
Yeah, I think so.
And Rob Zombie admits that he was flummoxed with what to do with Loomis. He didn't think he could do the same as the original did with him. And his instincts are right, but he should have still tried to do something if you're going to have him as a character in your movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a note here, which is so long ago since I saw this, I don't quite know what it means, so maybe you can put it in context for me. Cunning away to herself. And then I put, never seen this before in a film.
Cutting away?
They something happens, I think it must be Laurie.
Yeah.
The film cuts away to herself, like they do a cutaway, but it's to the same thing that we just saw.
Is it? Because I have a note that she's dreaming Michael's dreams.
Okay.
Did they cut from her in the dream to her waking up, maybe?
I've seen that before.
Huh.
But I don't know if I've seen, I don't know. It just seemed confusing to me.
Because the next thing I have is we're going to the Rabbit in Red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is where there's Rob Zombie just doesn't know where to stop, because when you've got strobe lighting, relentless cutting, and dream imagery, we can do without the curse words at this point. I get it. Excess, we understand. You want to make people sick. I get it.
Yeah.
You've done that. Now please stop.
It's all you've been doing.
It's all, yeah, absolutely. Although in the middle of this, there's a scene with Laurie talking to a teddy bear.
Oh, yeah,
which is sort of the first genuinely affecting moment we've had from Laurie after 1.5 movies. It's the first time where you're like, oh, I might be able to relate to this version of the character.
Mm-hmm.
But that's after 1.5 movies, and it doesn't last. So
right.
but it's just
In
interesting.
addition,
that-
she kind of makes it sound like Cartman talking to Polly Prissy Pants. So. it
Oh, great!
rained
Now
a
that's
little bit
ruined for me. Okay, excellent. Thanks. And when Brackett and Loomis are reunited, again, they're still estranged. We continue with the choice of making them constantly at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's mad about the second book that he's reading.
Yeah, right.
And this would have been the perfect opportunity for them to get over their antagonism and have them work together. And the film again doubles down on the. It's like
Sure.
you said you said you were done with the books and you wrote another book, so they're back to square one.
Right. Their relationship has not progressed.
No, because he keeps writing. Presumably, if they did a third one of these movies, it would be you really had to finish that book trilogy, didn't you?
You know that was in the cards? Like they wanted to make another one?
Sure. If this happened, why not?
Yeah.
If Halloween Ends happened, clearly
But
there's
it's
no
funny
cap
to,
on
like-
what you can do with the series.
It's funny to read about it because Zombie had such a terrible time on the first movie. So it seems like a miracle he decided to come back for this because they were going to move forward without him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, well, fuck that, I'll do it. Like, you know.
He's sort of like, got that movie about the white horse I wanted to make. I wonder
Yeah,
whether
exactly,
I could
yeah.
insert that into this movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, mercy.
And then my next note is Daniel Roebuck as Big Lou,
Yeah.
who I can't remember, but I think was a character who was left on the cutting room floor of the original Halloween. You see him briefly.
Okay.
I think he's in there. These scenes, these because this is flashback, right? We're going back to Sherry stripping, aren't we? Or no, this is present day, but he's taking his revenge on Big Lou because he was sleeping with his mother, right? Or
Something like that.
something like or exploiting her or whatever,
Right.
or pimping her out or something.
Yeah.
And it feels like a scene from Halloween Kills, but obviously
It did feel like that. Yeah, you're right.
that's not happened yet. So I was thinking about what are they pulling from? And I thought it reminds me also like a less good version of those opening scenes of Kill Bill Part 2, where it's Michael Madsen as the strip club bouncer.
Bouncer.
Those, superb scenes with him talking to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering whether given that, he's obviously kind of aping Tarantino in several respects, whether that was
Right.
another aspect of that.
Yeah, it did seem like this little self-contained story about the stripper, Big Lou, and then that subordinate
Yeah.
who really gets it.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I guess it's picking up, again, like, he doesn't want to let go of the movie he wanted to make. And going back to where his wife worked in the original movie kind of suggests that. And there's probably the least tasteful moment in the entire film, which is really saying something as well.
That's what I wrote down. It's funny you say that. I put it's in unbelievably bad taste.
I assume we're talking about smashing a stripper's head into the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob Zombie likes to have a reason for women to be naked when killing them in a film.
Yeah, so much so that when Annie dies in this movie, she starts off with clothes on.
Oh my god, yeah.
I mean, we're not there yet, but
No, but you're right. It's the same issue.
ugh.
The end of the scene has Michael changing the sign from open to closed,
Yeah.
and I was like, this is as close as we get to Michael telling a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Even this feels like a stretch, and he's not aware of the punchline. But we've talked about this before. It's like, he's in the original Halloween, the John Carpenter 78 Halloween. He has this dark sense of humor that kind of gets mangled in all the sequels we never really see again.
Right.
Just turns into general sneakiness rather than kind of like prankster kind of stuff.
Maybe.
But this feels more like an attempt to do that.
To me, I was wondering if this was as funny and sneaky as he could get. Like, we're closed. Nobody will find these bodies now.
Nobody's going to ask why this strip bar closed unexpectedly and hasn't reopened in days.
Days.
It's not like the people who attend these places have a visceral urge to be there.
Yeah, right. I think next I have because this is where The Secret seems to be the centerpiece of the movie now, because Brackett's going to read the book.
Yeah.
And
I had no
pissed.
idea she didn't know.
You didn't know? Okay.
Because nothing tells you either way, right? It's like, I assume that her kind of goth period was a response to her finding out she's Michael's sister.
Mm.
There's nothing that tells you either way that she's found out or she hasn't, and it doesn't make sense to me that she wouldn't have found out.
Yeah, right.
Until this book comes out. Anyway. It's a moot point. I think,
Yeah.
this is a badly made horror movie. These kind of implausibilities are fine.
Or whatever.
They're not the problem. What is the problem? Time-lapse photography. This is another one of my classic go-tos for a director who's out of creative ideas.
Yeah.
Throw in some time-lapse photography. Although in 2009 it would have seemed newer and more...
Newer? Yeah.
More experimental, but I'm fucking sick of it now. If I see it in in a TV show or a film, I take against it almost immediately. Because it's been like 10, 15 years of this.
Of nonsense? Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of... It's just a... it's just a trick. It's not artistic. It's just... Anyway.
Beware, filmmakers.
It's kind of a...
Tom Stewart is on the case.
Sorry, but that is a classic. That's a smoking gun that a director is. So I'm no director is out of ideas, and I've no surprise.
More than the
at
Dutch
Rob
tilt.
Zombie. Well, didn't he do the Dutch tilt as well in the first film?
In the first film, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember there being a petting zoo in this movie, but I've made a note about it. Do you remember what that is?
A petting zoo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're like in the town, and there's a bunch of pigs, and she pets a pig and gives it back.
Right, so there is a petting zoo in this movie. So
It's kind of set up
my
like...
follow-up question, why is there a petting zoo in this movie?
Yeah, it's kind of like a petting zoo / pumpkin patch, like how they just set up stacks of hay in a parking lot, and all of a sudden you have a...
Oh, okay.
You
And
know.
then throw in a couple of
throw in a couple of
animals.
pigs, and there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Why don't we take one more break, and then we'll
Yeah,
come
let's-
back, because we're, Lori's going to read the book, and she's going to boldly declare, "I'm not me." To the confusion of everyone around her.
Sounds like an Amy Mann song.
Yeah, and then we're really going to, this town is going to start feeling so Halloween 5 with the barn parties and the...
Like I say, another sign that you're in trouble. If we're in
man.
one of these movies and if you're in a Halloween movie and a party starts, it's not going to be good.
All right, let's take one more break, and then we'll be back. How about that?
If you like podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
Stay on target.
and check out the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to...
Stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to...
Stay on target.
That's the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you.
Once again, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, finishing up, possibly, with the Halloween series
Oh, right.
in total and completely. Literally nothing left to talk about until they make another movie.
We think.
Why did we save this for last?
Well, I got two responses to that. The first one is, have we ever had if we ever covered a movie that there's been 4 separate distinct versions of?
Oh, wow.
Because we got Halloween 2,
Yeah.
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Halloween 2017, and Halloween Kills. They're all remakes of the original Halloween 2 in some sense.
In one way or another, yeah.
In one way or another, yeah.
It's so interesting about that Halloween Kills, right? Because you think that that's a remake of the original, but it's not. It's
a direct sequel.
It's a direct sequel, so it is a
Yeah.
Halloween 2, and then they decide to Halloween 2 the next movie.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And secondly, have we ever done a movie that has had so many different points of comparison at once?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
If you think we've got what, 2 separate 2 reboots. We've got another reboot to compare this reboot to, and an original franchise to compare this reboot to.
Yeah. And then on top of it, this movie is going to choose to ape Halloween 5 in so many ways in the last third of this movie.
Yeah. Well, I right now I'm at the book launch,
Yeah.
which is a pretty decent scene as far as this movie goes.
Linda's dad shows up.
And before that, we get like a serial killer fan.
Yeah, what was that all about? Also, I think that guy is fucking... I think he's one of the fucking band guys later at the party.
Okay.
I did read that they had to like double cast someone as 2 different roles.
Okay.
So I guess if you're gonna do that and then have put him in makeup because he's looking like a vampire or whatever the hell he was dressed as the singer. But I was like, hey, I think that's that fucking serial killer.
Again, it's not a big deal in a movie where a guy hangs out with his ghost younger self.
Yeah, right.
We can suspension of disbelief is off the table at that point.
We're fine.
Yeah, so I think this is supposed to be like a jab at the commercial exploitation of murder by the media, which they do a little bit of in the first film, and they're doubling down on it again now. If we're to trust this mentally unstable man, then Rob Zombie has turned Michael into a complex character,
Right.
which I'm sure he thinks he's done. But this guy who
Who believes,
is a lunatic,
yeah.
probably, yeah. But then, as you say, Linda's dad comes out, and I think this is a really great payoff. It's a really good use of the seriality of the film couplet, because Linda mentions that her parents are divorced in the original film, and this is kind of the payoff to that, right? It's like this divorced dad who's lived through his daughter dying.
Yeah.
So I think more horror films should do this and talk about what happened to the victims.
What happened to the victims?
Relatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, in a sort of, just a kind of like brief way like this, right? The Scream films do it, but they do it in a very melodramatic way, where people's parents and grandparents and great uncles
become murderers
back and become murderers, and we don't need to go that far. But I like the nod to, death has consequences here, and it's very un-Rob Zombie-like as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I don't think I even really gave it the credit that maybe it does deserve. Because between the serial killer that shows up and the dad, I was more fixated on the remarkable poise that the Loomis character seems to have in front of all of these people, It reminded me of like George W. Bush when that guy threw that shoe. And he's just like lets it pass him. He's like, "Well, that was strange." Or,
well, when you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. You got to expect shoes flying in your face.
Or when Charles, didn't somebody throw something at Charles
King Charles.
Yeah, King Charles. What?
I nearly said Prince Charles. You see, I cannot accept the
yeah,
fact that
I
he
can't-
is
you can't
currently
accept
Britain's
it.
monarch.
Was there a gunshot or something? And he just
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of
He so
casually looked off to his right.
that's exactly right. You got everything. Someone set off a starting pistol.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone's going ape shit, and he does the thing where what's he called? Dominic West says that's how he gets into character with Charles.
Oh, really?
He does the cut, like he starts adjusting his cuffs, and then the character just comes.
Oh, that's great.
Is that? And then there's one line from an interview he saw with the then Prince Charles, where he said, "I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for jolly old England." And that's how he says that, and he starts playing with his cuffs, and suddenly
Yeah, that
Charles.
would get you into it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That's a great. I think he talked about that on the Graham Norton show. But yeah, Eddie Izzard described it as that thing is like he's always playing with his cuffs, like he's gonna pull out a bunch of flowers like a magician.
Yeah. What about this?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But it's interesting because it feels like a little bit of a caricature of what an author on a book tour, especially at Dr. Loomis's level, might be, because I don't expect they're going around in limousines like rock
Yeah,
stars.
right, totally. Not for this book, not for that author.
They just want to lean into the idea that he's he takes his celebrity too seriously.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So having said all that about how that's a really good idea to bring Linda's dad back, so I understand why the book launch is in there, but I don't understand why we're talking so much about this fucking book. Plays no role in the narrative.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it does. Obviously, it's how Laurie finds out that she's Michael's sister, but Michael's not going back to Haddonfield because
Because he wrote a book.
he wrote a book to get revenge. So why
if
is
he
it?
didn't, if Loomis didn't show up at the end of that movie and walk into that shack, like he and Michael would have had no contact throughout this entire movie.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like they've given up on Loomis being a part of the story, because
Yeah.
he finds out about what Michael's doing on the news.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's a far cry from the Van Helsing figure stalking
that,
his
yeah.
Dracula. He's just sitting. Van Helsing's just sitting at home,
Like, oh my God.
scanning the channels, looking for anything vampire related.
I didn't know there was a vampire loose tonight.
And tonight, a woman has had a blood drain. Probably Dracula. I'm getting in the car.
Oh man.
But it doesn't end there in terms of the world of celebrity, because
Oh my gosh, it gets so
this is
meta.
where we get the Newman Hour,
Yeah.
which sounds like a spin-off of Seinfeld. I would
Seinfeld.
watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Just an hour of Newman doing Newman, like delivering mail. I don't know.
He
What
should've-
would it be?
Chris Hardwick should have started it by saying, "Hello,
Yes,
I'm Newman."
Newman. This is it's interesting because it's like the anti Larry Sanders, because every late night talk show detail is badly placed.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of what they do in Larry Sanders, where they synthesize a late night talk show to the point where it's indistinguishable from the real thing. This is like the opposite of that. Every single detail is wrong.
Yeah, right.
Nothing adds up to what it's actually like, what these shows are actually like. And, Cameo City, we've got Weird Al
Weird Al
Yankovic.
Yankovic, whose only stipulation was he got to pick what shirt he gets to wear.
Do you think Weird Al Yankovic is like, I don't want to feel like I'm giving this away. I'm going to come up with a weird stipulation.
Oh, Chris Hardwick is, he was an original actor in House of a Thousand Corpses, so he has played a role in a Rob Zombie movie, along with
Wasn't
Rainn
he
Wilson.
in Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines as well?
Is he? I don't remember.
I think he's one
that.
of the scientists.
Oh, that is ringing a bell. Yeah. Another bad movie.
But it's Rob Zombie kind of like, it's another example of
Yeah,
just skip past that.
Let's go right over that.
It's
We don't have time
it's
to
another
relitigate.
It's another example of Rob Zombie desperately trying to fill out a world he doesn't understand. He's like, so the guest would be Weird Al Yankovic, and this comedian, he'll be the host. It's like, what? It's like,
Well, the best part of all of this is that there's a moment, just a few short minutes after this, where Loomis is watching, before he finds out what Michael is up to on the TV, he's watching his episode on this talk show.
yeah,
And he kind of,
right.
because Chris Hardwick is kind of, he's not taking him seriously. He's telling him what a piece of shit he is live on TV.
Something that all late night TV hosts do,
That
by the
they
way.
would do,
Always,
yeah,
they're always
totally.
perpetually rude to their guests.
Yeah. And I just love that there's this moment that shows how little Rob Zombie understands what he's put on screen. Because Loomis puts his hands to his forehead and he says, "This is the end. Like, this is going to ruin me." And the idea that clumsy talk show is going to ruin his book is so funny to me. Another
But it's also-
unintentionally funny moment in this fucking movie.
It's also a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I don't think at this point Chris Hardwick was doing After Midnight or At Midnight or whatever it's called.
No, he probably was.
I don't think so. He certainly wasn't doing Talking Dead because it wasn't on the air yet. So I don't know if people hired him for those roles because they saw this, but carry on talking. I'm going to look at when At Midnight.
No, you're right, because At Midnight was later, because this is 2009. Yeah. I really liked At Midnight.
Matt Myra was a writer on that,
Yeah.
I believe.
And now there's After
right.
Midnight with the woman after
Oh, that's
Colbert.
what I'm thinking of.
And I'm trying to think if I
Ooh,
yeah.
2013.
Okay.
So yeah, this was basically his reel, his sizzle reel to getting that job, and then that led to I don't know, when did Talking Dead start? Probably around the same time, because it took a few years before it became a kind of show that would be
Talked
worthy
about.
of a
Yeah.
after show. Yeah.
But he did like Talking Bad and
Yes.
like he's done it with all of them.
Breaking Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Now he's just concerned with the wall.
Yes. Interview with the Vampire with a Vampire.
Well, meanwhile,
Oh, yeah,
Laurie
he's
is
a game show
declaring
host
I'm
now.
not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's meant to be dramatic, but came across as funny again to me.
Yeah, there's a few lines like that.
Because all our
here.
friends are like, what?
Yeah. Who says, "Are you a giant? Can we be friends?"
Oh.
It's in a dream, I'm sure.
Are you sure? It might
maybe
be at
not.
the
Maybe-
costume party.
Yeah, I think maybe it is.
I think she says that to... Was it like a giant bear?
It's really hard to speculate.
But there's there's Frankenfurter friend who gets killed in the van.
It's full of postmodern monster movie stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Terror Train is the name of the
the band. Right. I think he thinks
They're
he was
kind
being
of-
very clever with that.
Well, also, it's a kind of hipster aesthetic that, again, only exists in the 2000s, yet the movie refuses to pin down what era they're in.
Yeah, right. But that whole murder of the boyfriend by the tree and then the girl in the van, that all felt very Halloween 5 to me.
Well, it felt like what I imagined without having put myself through them, Rob Zombie's other movies are like. Because I wrote down, when I saw that van kill, I said, without having seen The House of a Thousand Corpses or The Devil's Rejects, I know full well there is a kill in that like this. But they get this. Is this where you were saying they get very meta? Is it in this scene?
Well, I meant more like with Weird Al and Chris Hardwick. That was
Oh yeah. Well, we've got a few because we've got they there's a Mike Myers joke
Yeah.
that someone makes. And they make a reference to Michael being like the shark in Jaws, which is referring to like some of the movie criticism of
Yeah, so I think it started
the original.
with the actors that they
Mhm.
choose to put in on that talk show, and then leading into
Yeah.
the dialogue that follows throughout
Yeah.
this scene especially.
So they're going for a little bit of a New Nightmare feel that discusses how Michael has been represented in media. But
Right.
again, then Rob Zombie is not Wes Craven, so it doesn't really come off.
Yeah. He gets cross-cut happy again when that friend dies in the van, and it's cross-cut with her dancing, almost as though she's
Yeah.
culpable. It seems like the
I want-
movie's blaming Laurie for this friend's death.
Right.
Uh,
I wonder if they think that. I wonder if he thinks that because he's making a slasher, he has to cross-cut more.
I don't know, yeah.
I don't know.
But
I
he's
don't
in
know.
love with it.
Yeah. He is, absolutely.
And now,
So
now
Now it's a full-on story of supernatural possession.
yeah, I was just going to say that because she is now not just dreaming about Sherry Moon, she is seeing her in front of her in real time.
Yeah.
And it is a type of possession.
Yes, absolutely. Michael now looks like death in in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. I wrote that down. I half expect him to like raise his finger and go, "You Americans, you're always talking."
That's great.
Also, and I hate to ask a question like this at this stage of our discussion, why are the Ghost family coming for Annie?
Yeah.
Your answer to the question is just to validate the question. You don't have an answer, you're just validating that I'm asking the question. I love it. Yeah. That is indeed a question.
Because, and it's funny too, because he's at the barn party. He kills Laurie's friend and Laurie's friend's new friend. I was almost going to say boyfriend, but she met him just there.
Yeah.
And after a quick talk to make sure that she was in fact a woman with a vagina and not a guy, he was game for sex. So,
And there's
but
a joke about roofing, which is in quotes.
right. Michael is at the place where the person he wants to kill most is at. It's like he just didn't do his homework, but he got very, in Halloween
Ships in
4,
the night.
Halloween 4, how we talk about how Michael can get from one place to another very quickly.
Yeah.
He's like on the outskirts of town throwing Bucky onto the fucking electrical grid, and then he's at the sheriff's home, and then he's in the car, and then he's like, he's getting all over. And like that, he goes straight from the barn party to killing a cop at Annie's house.
Yeah.
And he's there with mom and himself, little boy self.
Little Boy Self.
Yeah.
Isn't that a Jodie Foster movie, Little Boy Self? There's a moment where Annie does a silent slow motion run out of the room, which is specifically pulled from the Twin Peaks pilot. The shot of Laura Palmer's mother, Grace Zabrowski, as Mrs. Palmer doing it. So he really is digging into Twin Peaks territory here, I think. And is it a flip flop?
It felt like he was going for high art for sure.
Oh yeah. Is it a flip flop to kill Annie after keeping her alive when they killed her in the original?
I mean,
they're trying to double bluff us, but it just feels like delayed gratification because we kind of knew she was going to die, or we thought she was dead anyway.
Yeah, we thought she was.
I don't know.
I know, that's the thing though. Is like it feels like it's only a punishment for the audience.
You said about pretty much anything in this film, but yes.
Yeah, that's true. But it's like,
Definitely,
we thought she was dead. Hey, she's alive. Hey, fuck you, she's dead.
Yeah,
You
watch
know?
her die naked.
And she starts that scene off with clothes. So I don't understand her being naked unless Michael is also a pervert, which has not ever been brought up.
Benny Hill came in between and ripped off all her clothes
Yeah.
and then ran out.
No, he goes fast motion, not slow motion.
That's why they never met.
Right.
Because Michael's in slow motion, Benny Hill's in fast motion.
Oh,
He
man.
can get in and out, rip off her clothes and go and leave before Michael even gets there.
Yeah, I wrote down, Laurie is now seeing Sherry Moon, question mark?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Bumped the
Um,
closet door, everyone.
My next note is disco light escape into the woods.
Yeah, I
So
mean, he
guess
does,
there's some
like,
sort of-
well, he kills her new friend Maya first.
Mhm.
He's good at killing everybody except Laurie.
It seems that way, which makes me think again, get to that question of what does he want from Laurie?
Yeah, because the first
Like,
movie...
are we going back to him wanting to protect her,
Right.
or didn't we decide when we did Halloween that his goal is to protect her until she turns her back on him and then he wants to kill her?
Mhm.
And this movie is equally confusing about what his intentions are towards Laurie.
All I know is no good deed will go unpunished because Laurie's running through a forest and finds another stranger willing to help her. And, of course,
Yeah.
10 seconds later, like Buddy, he's dead.
Right, the first man in the movie who isn't a raping jerk, and Michael just kills him immediately.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie's like, we cannot have this in the world of a Rob Zombie movie.
Right.
We had the security guard, which was in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly in a dream, and this guy is going to be dead instantly. We also get a nighttime version of the spinning trees moment from the original movie. Remember, there was like, what is this spinning tree shot? It's not a perspective shot.
Right,
It's
yeah.
not a motif. It's just a shot out of no, and they do it again here. So they're like
Right.
really trying to make spinning trees happen.
Stop trying to make spinning
Make
trees
spinning
happen.
trees happen.
It's the fetch equivalent for Rob Zombie.
I'm half joking when I say that the Ghost family are basically the monsters, but
Oh, you're not far
Given
off,
what
though, are you?
given Rob Zombie went on to remake the monsters,
Yeah.
I mean, even down to Laurie being the Marilyn,
Yeah, right.
it's like it kind of fits really well. So the deputy, when I saw him, I was like, oh, he must be another cameo because he looks and sounds so familiar. The guy who played the deputy, and I was like, oh, maybe he was in one of the original Halloween sequels, or he's in a horror sequel that Rob Zombie wants to acknowledge. And I found out he's in fact the voice of Patrick in SpongeBob SquarePants. So that was
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's the level we're working on.
the one actor who isn't a horror movie cameo in the entire movie.
This is your second to last favorite, right?
of
2009.
so at the moment
Okay.
I'll reserve judgment till after we've discussed Pink Panther 2. Right now, it's not looking good for Halloween 2, given the discussion we've had. The dream revelation
That was a
that
crusher.
really threw me. Yeah, it might have been the nail in the coffin. And I have a lot of questions that I know in advance they haven't thought about. Like, is the ghost mum real? Is she a shared hallucination of the Maya siblings? Either way,
Yeah.
the canon changes considerably.
Right.
Like, there's no answer that doesn't uproot everything. and then I had a follow-up question. Would this have happened if Laurie didn't find out who she was? And
Well, the psychic connection was already happening.
Why would it make why would it make a difference? It's like, right, but it's only after she finds out she's Michael's sister that she starts to
Yeah.
see
That's
the ghost.
Well, she sees them in dream, I think, before that, but
or work with the ghost
in life after that.
Okay.
But what I don't get is, well, I mean, first of all, I guess I'll go in order here because Loomis shows up. I wrote down what is the purpose of Loomis in this movie.
Yeah. Again, it's like a delayed redemption arc, isn't
Yeah.
it? Rather than doing like a redemption arc from the end of the last movie,
Right.
they have him come from the bottom, right,
Mhm.
again to like, I'm going to be the guy who saves everyone
Yeah.
at the last minute. So it's his last chance at a redemption arc in the movie, basically. That's why he's there.
I guess I also kind of liked that it would be an easy way for them to do what you're saying, and for Brackett to say, all right, I'll give you one chance. But there's no way a cop could allow that to happen. So I like that he says, no, fuck off, get away from here. And then you keep the characterization stays the same because the piece of shit asshole
don't
just
write
does what
another
he wants
book.
anyway and goes over there, you know? So at least they're
Yeah, exactly.
like,
yeah.
it's still all the wrong choices,
Just
but at least
classic
he's
Hollywood.
consistent.
Just does whatever he wants.
And then he gets in there and to no avail, like he's got no purpose. He's just going to get horribly murdered. But we also have, speaking to Laurie and what's going on with her, Zombie gives us point of view shots of her being held down by the young Michael
Mm-hmm.
that Loomis is saying is only happening in your head, that it's not real.
Right, and so they're trying to throw in the ambiguity of it all being psychosomatic, not supernatural. And I got to the point where
Just
I
being
kind of
ghosts, right,
adjusted
yeah.
to this just being ghosts. And then this says to me, oh, it's like she's Fight Clubbing it.
No.
Which doesn't
Yeah.
help. It's already messy, conceptually.
Right.
I don't need
I
this
don't need a
third
veneer of
layer
shit.
of what. No, it's funny. Like Michael's eyes sticking out of a mask that's
right.
already ripped. We're basically seeing his face at this point. All the mystery of the mask has gone at this
What
point.
happens? How does he get onto the... Because he kills Loomis, but then how does he fall onto the spiky spikes?
Oh, I don't know. I
Anyway.
didn't write that down.
He's...
It's basically the end of Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2 minus the fire.
Right.
Because both he and Loomis died.
But he's stuck there. What I found odd is this choice of having Laurie say, I love you, brother, which feels really dumb and unearned. And then she just goes ballistic and becomes him and stabs him. And then puts on his mask and walks outside.
But it's an invert. So it's I'm trying to wrap my head around this. In the original movie, she does it, but it turns out to be a fake out. Here, it's also a fake out, but you buy into it more before it's revealed that it's a fake out. So it's like doing an inversion, but having the same outcome.
I don't know.
And then, you know, again, speaking of the end of it's exactly the same as the end of the first film. Get Laurie insanely killing Michael again as the final shot.
Yeah,
We've
right.
gone exactly nowhere in the space of one movie.
Except she walks outside with that mask on, which was also unintentionally funny.
Yeah, wearing the mask.
Yeah.
So having done the ending of Halloween 2, now we're doing the ending of Halloween 4 as well.
Yeah, right.
And then the White Room that she ends
Yes.
up in, we're trying to do the arc of Halloween 5 in the space of one final scene. Because she's, you know, it's like when Jamie starts out in the children's clinic at the beginning of 5, after the psychotic break, where she turns into Michael. So these last few minutes of the movie go through about 2 Halloween sequels in sequence.
Yeah.
And she's alone with a white horse for no valid reason.
No. But on the plus side, I mean, we'll get into your credit check, but we've already discussed original Halloween theme playing, unearned. And then I've never laughed so hard as when Love Hurts starts playing.
Yeah. Before the movie ends, she does the Norman Bates Psycho smile.
Yeah, she does it Bates, yeah.
And it's like, not even the original Halloween rips so directly from the
Right.
film that inspired it.
Yeah.
That's cheating. And then, so the Halloween theme comes in, and don't we have like a cutaway to the kills from the first two movies?
We do.
Like
From the
an
first
Imba
movie,
style
mostly.
Recap of the whole couplet.
Yeah, it's like
which
a
is
Rocky Five.
Well, it's like a slasher imbas. It's a slasher variation imbas, where you kind of recap the previous movie through all the kills. We see that at the beginning of.
But what I don't like is it just seems like a reason for Rob Zombie to show us dead tits again. That's what I think his secret want was.
Hello, we are dead tits. Who booked this opener?
Remember when I showed you Danielle Harris's dead tits not once but twice? Here they are again.
Yeah. So, and I've got a note here that says, so there are photographs in the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Are these supposed to be the illustrations in Loomis's book?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought again, and I think when we did, not to make the payroll redundant, but when we did Halloween on the Patreon, Halloween 2007 on the Patreon, 2007.
Yeah.
I had to check which Halloween I was talking about there for a second. There's like a part of the movie which feels like a, bless you,
Thank you.
feels like a true crime document, like a Netflix true crime documentary, and this feels that way too, like exactly how a true crime documentary would end with like archive photographs.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm into my credit check now. Yeah, and did you say
the very
love
idea
hurts.
of that is
Yeah. Well, he has this urge to kind of like he sentimentalize the Maya story when there's no basis for doing that.
Oh, see, I look at it differently. I think it's more to legitimize what he's done.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
what it feels like to me.
Interesting. Weird Al Yankovic is played by Al Yankovic.
Yeah. I did like
As
I
if
did
the
like
only
that
only
moment.
distinction between the two is the weird.
Yeah. I did like that moment when Loomis called him Mr. Weird.
Mr. Weird. Yes, that is good.
Yeah.
Sound editorial by Ear Candy Incorporated. Description
All right.
of the company and the effects they produce do not match. Would not describe the soundtrack as ear candy. One of the songs is called Honky Tonk Halloween, which sounds like a song that could grace Halloween Kills as much as this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And in the costume department, there's a role of Aja and Dyer.
I saw that. Yeah.
I think these people
The
deserve
telltale
most of-
sign that he wanted to make a movie from the 70s.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not sure they give this credit for most movies, but I can see in a Rob Zombie movie, that's
Yeah.
sort of the most important job, is dyeing
Yes.
things and aging things.
Yes.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween 2. I mean, we got to talk Pink Panther, but this movie's at the bottom of my list. It's funny because I do like it more than the 2007.
Yeah, I think that's a given, and then I think it's just a matter of degree,
Yeah.
because it's still a horrible failure of a movie.
It's not good.
No, it's that couplet. I think that couplet is it the low point? Well, we can say now we've done them all.
True.
Is that couplet the low point of?
Didn't you put
I did.
something of David Gordon Green's above 2007? I mean,
did.
below it?
Yeah, I put Halloween Kills below
Kills
everything.
below it? And I think I
Yeah.
listed 2007 as the bottom of the barrel. This might go
Goes
above
yeah.
a couple of David Gordon Greens.
Yes, I agree. This goes above Ends for
And
sure,
Kills.
and Kills, and Halloween, so 2007. But that's it.
Yeah.
It can't
All right.
go.
I'm in agreement.
Because what's the next one on the list? Is like, is it Resurrection? No, can't be. It's
You
nowhere
probably have-
near as- I probably have what? Go on, finish the sentence.
Well, I was gonna say you probably have his first Halloween above it, or next.
Yes,
Right?
I think I do. Yeah, that would make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right about that. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable saying this is better than Kills and Ends,
Yep, I feel comfortable saying that too, and
but that's remarkable. That shows you how bad those movies are.
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
how visionless they are. I think as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
that a movie as misguided as this has more in its arsenal than those two films.
Yeah. All right.
Some
Well-
people just aren't horror directors, no matter how hard they try.
No matter how much they think they are.
No matter how many franchises they attach themselves to that are horror based.
Oh, that's funny. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have to tell us what you think. Where does 2009's Halloween 2, the fourth, well, I guess the second Halloween 2 of the four Halloween
The second
2s?
Halloween, yeah.
Yeah.
The second of three Halloween, the second of four Halloween 2s
Yeah, that we've done.
in the franchise.
Where does it stand for you?
We are now we are certified Halloween 2 experts.
Here we are. And you're going to have to tell us what you think. And you know what to do. So find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. Don't find us on X. And send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. All right. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. I don't know what we're doing next, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
It'll be one of these 2009 films.
It'll
We'll
be
des- we'll
be
decide.
from the year 2009.
We'll get back to you. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
I'm going to give you my Jolly Green Giant. You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
That's Daniel Roebuck, isn't it?
Yeah.
As if there as if there was anything lower than playing Jay Leno in a movie.
There was something very odd about his kill,